Welcome to the sixth episode of the Break Even Brothers podcast. I am Bennett Bernard. Joined by me is Bradley Bernard, co-host. How are things going, Brad?
Pretty good. Had a decently chill weekend. Just been kind of preparing for interviews and doing a few life things, so not too bad. But definitely the whole interview process has been a bit taxing. So trying to
Yeah.
recover and not study too hard because it can be a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
How about you?
for those who've been tracking our posting schedule, you'll notice that we were a little bit late on the last episode just because our lives were very busy the last week and a half. So I'm happy to kind of get back in this regular schedule that we normally do. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, my weekend was good. Had the kids, solo parent for a night.
Mm.
Wife was out doing something, having a night out of town. So me and the kids held it down and had some fun. But then, yeah, pretty uneventful today. So, but it's good. It's good to have a quiet.
Yeah. I was scrolling through YouTube Shorts after kind of doing a study session. So I'll study for like an hour or two. That's just practicing programming questions or doing system design. So looking up some good YouTube videos on how people walk through some system design. But yeah, while I was scrolling YouTube Shorts, I found this really funny short that was talking about this video game we used to play, Oblivion. And in this game, it's a role-playing game and you can talk to all these characters, do all these side quests. One of the characters in the game allows you to actually order pizza. So it's a mod that you add to the game. What this does is you talk to the character in the game, you go through a few series of dialogue questions, and at the end of that, it places an order through Domino's official website, and then the pizza comes to your house. So you're playing the game, you're not distracted at all. You go talk to this guy real quick, and a pizza comes in, 20 or 30 minutes later. I had sent it immediately to Ben because I was like, oh, we played this game so much growing up and it was a staple. And like this was a super sick mod. So what did you think of that video?
Yeah, and I thought it was super cool. I mean, right away, I was super excited about it because, and I haven't, full disclosure, I haven't tried it yet to see if it actually works or like how good of experience it is. But, we used to sink hours, days into that game. And, I mean, for those who have played that game, but if for those that have not ever played those games, especially in the time that it came out, it's probably like 2003, I would guess, 2004. It was such like an experience, like the whole soundtrack, like the world building, the characters. It had the right level of like campiness where it was kind of funny and silly, but it's also like pretty like challenging sometimes and just
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal storytelling. So that game, you and I probably spent days of game time playing that game, if not more. And what immediately stood out to me about it in a game like that, where you're like immersed, like, because not all games are like that. I think like if you're playing, Fall Guys, or you're playing, Chained Together, like we've been playing recently, like it's just a different experience. Like the love and like attention to detail like isn't there. If you play a
Mm-hmm.
game like Red Dead Redemption, play a game like GTA, you play a game like Skyrim or Oblivion, like that, like world building and attention to detail, or like Elden Ring, I know it's super popular right now. Like those games are becoming more and more of like an experience. And so when you sent me that short, I was like immediately like, this is huge, because I feel like you're almost like layering in a bit of real life into the game a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from a game developer standpoint too, like you're keeping people on the game too. Like instead of having to like, "Oh, I got to go order some pizza, let me go out and go to my phone, get my phone, and type in all my pizza details and order my pizza." Like you're kind of keeping people in their eyeballs, like on your game. You can make it interactive and almost build out like a point of sale within the game. So I thought it was super cool. And it was like when he sent it, it was almost like kind of silly, but I immediately was like, this could be like a really big thing in the future. Like that's where my mind went right away. But I don't know, how did you feel
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, my first thought was, oh, I really want to try this out. And then my second thought was, how the heck is this working? So I took a look at the code, and I think it's 8 Python files, literally just hitting like dominoes.com, pasting in this order. I forgot what the exact order was, but it was like 2 or 3 pizzas with a side and then some drink. And it's like kind of a cute little mod to add. Probably wouldn't be my order of choice, but it would be so cool just to go talk to this character in the game and have all that happen. So yeah, I think it definitely opens up a lot of opportunity. And again, it's definitely more of a joyful, like playful mod. But as you're saying, games these days, I don't know. I definitely agree that the detail is not like it used to be. I've seen making Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I think they have a full documentary on how they built the game and just walking through all the roles of these folks building the game, how many years it took to build. It's honestly insane. Like, I don't think game studios do that
Mhm.
anymore, and it's kind of a lost art. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really want to try it. I'll probably try it. I don't know, maybe in the next like 2 weeks and report back because I don't know, just it sounds super fun and just nice to see. Oh, like I'm playing in the game, a pizza comes, I'm gonna go eat it, jump right back in the game. Minimal time. You do have to type in your credit card in plain text in the Python script, and yes, I've checked. It's nothing crazy, so it's totally fine. But I think it's your credit card, your expiration, security, zip, and your address, and so all that just goes to Domino's directly. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah. And I think, that's just like pizza. I feel like, you could almost like take it to like a whole nother ridiculous level. But like, so Bethesda Studios, I think is Bethesda
Hmm.
something. I don't know if it's Studios or whatever, but they're the ones who make the Oblivion, Skyrim, those that series of games. I think they most recently came out with one that was like a space themed one. I don't remember what it was called, like Starlink or something like that.
Yeah, star something. I can't remember either. Wasn't that good. I
Yeah,
think it
but I
crashed
think
when
I
it
think it
first
got
started.
yeah, I got mixed reviews, but usually they produce pretty quality stuff. But I know for sure like Rockstar with like Red Dead Redemption is like my favorite like game as
Hmm.
like an adult for sure. And the Red Dead Redemption 2 story building, like environment building is like nothing I've ever experienced. And but you could almost like take that, and if you were to apply it to like Red Dead, there's different like environments, like you could be like in like a tavern or like a saloon like in the game and like want to order some like mashed potatoes, I don't know, like something that like is like a period for the time, like I want to order some like you know I can't think of like a good example, I guess, like chicken nuggets. So I want to order some chicken nuggets or whatever. Like you could do other things other than just like pizza. I think it'd be super interesting to like be able to like almost layer. Maybe a better example is like GTA, like GTA 5 or GTA 6, where like you're driving by and you see like a burger place in the game. Like, oh, I want a burger. Like I'm gonna go to that burger place and like order an actual burger, and that somehow it will sync up to like an In and Out or a Whataburger or like a Carl's Jr. that's nearby you, and someone with Grubhub or DoorDash will fulfill that order for you. I feel like that's a could be a very interesting space in the future
Yeah, and
because
I think
yeah, I think
there's also like NFT games. I've played a few of those where you play the game, you get this reward. It's in the crypto space. It kind of brings a different dynamic to the game. Where usually when you're playing the game, you're in the rank system. You're trying to climb higher with your friends in a competitive way. But it feels like gaming gets a little stale. I think in our generation at our age, like we're looking for a little bit more, like on top of socializing, like what else is new? Because, I've gamed 10 plus years. Like, how can we make it fun and exciting? I think the NFT games came out, you know, in the crypto craze and was a little bit of a different take where, hey, you can play the game and earn money. Like, kind of sounds cool, but it's a little bit niche. It's not that much money. The game tactics that suck you into that aren't that great. So you have this like dynamic of, oh, I'm playing to get better and I'm playing for money. And the best games that I've
mhm.
ever played, I'm not playing for money. Like I really dive into it and enjoy it. And I feel like this is a different take on it where you could integrate with a real world. There's also been AI games. So you can think of this role playing game where each of these characters don't have hard coded scripts that they're speaking based on like a decision tree, but more like dynamic responses based on your character's level, based on all these actions you've taken in the game. So much more detailed and realistic story experience. So I think as looking forward, specifically in the role playing games genre, like there's so much innovation going on. I'm like excited to see what the next iteration in Elder Scrolls looks like, but at the same time, these games take like 10 years. You always expect, oh, when it comes out, it's going to use all this awesome technology when probably it's being worked on before AI was super popular and, probably won't have that and needs to depend on Xbox to deliver and, Windows to catch up.
Mhm.
So it's like, you got to be careful with how much you expect. At the end of the day, it's like the raw storytelling is the best part. All these additions of like rewards
Mhm.
or dynamic language, those are nice to haves, but I haven't really seen a game flip completely to like AI 100%. Like there's a normal platform with guardrails, and then AI can take it all the way. But I have seen some folks try to do that on Twitter. Not super successful
Mm,
yet, but just kind of like a build in public of a game that's very focused on like AI storytelling from the ground up. So kind of cool.
mm. Yeah, I feel like you and I have played games since we were kids, and for me, it almost feels like there's like camps now of like certain games. Like there's like the like experience games where I think of like Oblivion, but more modern. I think of Red Dead. I think of Elden Ring. There's probably others I'm not thinking of. Outside of the experience ones, there is the like competitive ones. So like Rainbow Six Siege, like Halo, like stuff that does like esports in. And then there's also like this third category, which I don't know what to like call it, but I would say the game that we were playing that was like this. I guess maybe it's like social is what I'd call it. And like Lethal Company is a game that we were playing a while back. That's completely unlike any of the other games that we were
Mm-hmm.
just listing off. And it's almost like it's an experience in a different way because it's like this is super unique or was really unique at the time we started playing it, but it also didn't come with all the like the negative things that came with games over the last like 5 or 6, 7 years with like the microtransactions and like the separate logins. Like you just boot up Lethal Company, it just starts, and like that was like almost a new experience in a weird way, even though it was like reverting back how it used to be. But like there's more social element of that. So I think in any of those, maybe less so for the competitive ones, but I think like on the social and on the more like environment, like experience, Elden Ring RPG type stuff, the like layering in of like real life or like blending in of like being able to order transactions, like order things directly from the game, I think has some potential for it to kind of develop further. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely interested to try that one out and see if it works myself. I'm like scared to put my credit card stuff in there because I'm not like, I don't know. It just feels weird, but maybe I'll just use like a prepaid card or something at the store and just to be careful.
Definitely think that social gaming is a new category. Like, I feel like I play it. I'm more of a competitive gamer, to be completely honest, and scratching that itch. Like, I played Halo, played League of Legends, got into these things pretty deeply and cared a lot about rank. But yeah, the social one, I feel like as you get older, you care less about being high ranks. It's just like, hey, hop online, have fun with
Hmm.
friends. So that's the new category. And Chain was super fun.
Yeah.
Being chained to each other. It's in essence, it's a game where you have four people. They're all chained to each other in a way that creates a square. So you're connected to two people. Then you need to traverse the map from start to finish, and it's all these obstacle courses. And if you basically lose all this progress. So it's you yelling at your teammates, which are your friends, getting very upset about how your friend missed a jump because they didn't time it correctly. But yeah, those are a lot of fun, and I think they cost like $5 or $10 on Steam, and you play it maybe for a few hours. But the satisfaction of doing that together is great. It's kind of like Overcooked. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Overcooked and participate in that, where it's very fun. And then when you get in serious mode, then it's relationships are tested, and
Hmm.
people are yelling, and that makes it fun too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Those were some tense moments for sure. Yeah, Chained Together was one. We played Phasmophobia, which was pretty. It wasn't.
Hard.
Yeah, it was like you're working together, but it's just silly. But yeah, those are always nice to have a good time and blow off some steam. But I think from a developer standpoint, whatever keeps people in the game longer, keep their eyeballs kind of on the game and in that environment is always a good thing. Well, I was gonna say, I'm interested to say like how that all plays out. But when I looked at the mod, it looked like it came out in like 2021 or something or 2020. So it's almost like it's not like a new thing. It's just something that hasn't really been, at least to my knowledge. Maybe I'm missing something, but has not been like super popular. Like in games we play, I don't
Mhm.
see that ever. I wonder why or what the trick is. Yeah, I'm curious why it's not out there more now.
What a genius idea! When I saw that video, I was like, "Gosh, what a genius!" Because all the games these days are free to play, and then they ding
Hmm.
you on every microtransaction for every skin, either on a gun or on a character or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do miss the old days of just paying $60, having that game, buying downloadable content in the future, which maybe is
Hmm.
$10 or $20, but now it's like you're getting bombarded by a season pass or all these like skins when you're in the game. It's, I don't know, kind of a lot, but I guess that's the revenue model games are looking at these days to be profitable, where they just have this forever game that they keep adding skins to. Don't really change
Hmm.
the core game, but are pushing pretty far on the art and creative side, where that's, I guess, how they make their money. So
Yeah. And I was just looking, last thing on this, I guess, before we move on, but it looks like the mod uses, like, Domino's has like a pizza API in Node, like written in Node.js. So it looks like that is just taking a high level look at it now, but it looks like that's what's being used.
Hmm.
So I guess to the extent that any other restaurants, Wingstop, Pizza Hut, Domino's, Burger King, whatever, I guess if they have any kind of similar system, then yeah, you could, in theory, make the same kinds of requests. So very interesting little mod there. That's completely
Yeah,
random. Yeah,
we'll report
I
back
wonder how much
soon.
time.
One of us has to do it. One of us really has to do it. And I honestly just record a video of like being in the game, talking to that
Yeah,
person, and then having just like a normal conversation. And then just 20 minutes later, hopefully something pops up. And just the magic. I feel like it's the magic that gets people excited about things. And that is like a touch of magic that, yeah, hasn't really existed before. Me or Ben will do it and we'll report back on just the raw feeling, the
yeah.
amazing feeling we're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I won't even if I end up doing it, and I want to, so I'll look into like how to install it and everything. But just the idea of like ordering something in the game, I won't believe it is real until the dude shows up with the pizza at my house. Like I'll
Hmm.
be like, this is still like I don't know what I bought. If I even am I going to get anything for this? It has reviews on like the little website that it's being hosted on, but yeah, I still I'm like until it's actually on my front door, like and it's been delivered, I'm like skeptical it's going to work for some reason. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
It's nice looking at the code, but yeah, I agree. I think if there's an error message thrown in any of the Python code that it runs to hit the API, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be no, debugger or any error message popping up. So you're gonna
Yeah,
have that conversation and wait. If it never comes, then I guess the mod doesn't work. Time to
yeah,
move on.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Definitely wanted to talk about a different topic now. I do love Oblivion, but haven't played it in a while. We'll queue it up soon. One thing I want to talk about is being authentic online. So it's been a little bit of a Twitter debate recently on, as someone on Twitter or on the X platform, the algorithm changes a lot. And as someone trying to grow themselves as an individual or a business, you usually have to cater to that algorithm. But the algorithm's crazy. Like it really respects things that, hot takes, things that stir the conversation, stir the pot a little bit. It's very hard to stay up to date because there was long tweets that came out that people said, hey, you have to have a long tweet. It has to be, 280 plus. Then there was, you have to have an image, you have to have a video. Then it was, hey, if you post a link in your first tweet, that's going to get killed by the algorithm and it's going to go nowhere. So all you see is, I've launched this product. Go look at the link in the second tweet. So essentially, this algorithm is changing a ton. You want to be growing as an individual on these platforms because it creates so much opportunity for you to market yourself and market your products. How do you approach it effectively? How do you be yourself? And how do you still move the needle at the end of the day when it feels like there's so many people out there? It's been tough. So it's been something that I've been working on myself, especially when I started my business 12 months ago. I went straight out of the bat, build in public. And I had watched people do it on the side. I didn't know exactly how it's done. I don't think I have the perfect recipe for it now. But one thing I would say is definitely do things you love and share about it, because I dove deep in the technical side, wrote tons and tons of tweets as I was building out both my Chatty Butler, my AI app on the App Store, and then both split my expenses. And yeah, I wrote so many tweets that I had so much fun to write. I would post it on X and get like no engagement. Like that's kind of the sad truth of some of these things is what I'm interested in might be a much smaller audience, and the algorithm might not reward that. But at the same time, I'm being myself. There are some people who like it. And I think over time, you'll really get a much larger following that's authentic and natural versus having these, quick hitter algorithm feeders. Yeah, maybe you got 500 followers, but they're going to unfollow you. They only followed you for this meme that you posted on one random day. So it's, yeah, my advice would be definitely be yourself. But I'm curious, you've been on Twitter, probably not posting as much as I've had. What's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I can't stand Twitter, to be honest with you. I try with the best intentions to use it. I can't stand it as like a user posting things. I'm on Twitter and I follow people, and I think it's a good source of information as long as
Hmm.
your list is curated and with intent. And like, I follow people from real estate Twitter, I follow people from tech Twitter, I follow people from finance Twitter. I think, and I get lots of good information from them. So like, I think
Hmm.
that part is valuable. For me personally, I've posted things out there. Nothing really, I'm not running a business. I'm not, a solopreneur. So I'm not like selling anything really. But as far as like networking or like sharing like thoughts or being like a thought leader, it's shouting into the void. And for me, being authentic online, I don't want to like convince the algorithm to like promote my stuff if it's not
Hmm.
fitting. You know what I mean? It's like I wouldn't act differently in person. Like I wouldn't say something controversial in person just for engagement. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't say something
Hmm.
or do something that isn't me like in the real world just to get like attention. So like why would I do that online? Like I get there's so much value in having eyeballs on you in this really competitive space online, but I think like you said, there will be a smaller niche of people that will like your content. And maybe that's only like 200 versus like 2000 like so followers that only followed you for the memes. But like that
Hmm.
200 is probably such better quality. They probably care about like the content you produce. They probably care about like you as a person too, and in some sense of like, wanting to see your success. So I think the right quality over quantity is something that I've probably come to try and appreciate more posting online, because yeah, you can try and please everyone, but I don't think you're going to get like the quality relationships or quality connections that you would want really to run your business or to build your
Hmm.
brand on.
Yeah. And speaking of Twitter, I'm with you in the fact that it's hard to do well. And again, you want to build your following, but at the same time, it feels so hard to fit your content into the algorithm. But on the other side, being a consumer is so much easier. You
Mhm.
open up your feed, you follow these people that you find value from, and then the algorithm does a decent job at finding other people. I wouldn't say great because sometimes I look at something that's interesting or catches my eye, then the algorithm changes and gives me more of that, but I don't want it. So it's not
Mhm.
perfect, but there are times where I've looked at some AI tweet and then, I log in the next day, open up my phone, scroll my feed and see other cool information. So I think Twitter, like the maximum value that I get out of it is creating this curated list of communities, exactly as you mentioned, kind of the cross section of things that you're interested in to build up this like kind of alpha online where, you know, people are posting about things that they're working on and doing it in real time and usually, working on bleeding edge technology. So I've curated like my following list to find these awesome people that are sharing their thoughts, that are being vocal about it. And that's what brings me back to Twitter. And then for me building my own, Twitter following, that's me trying to provide value to others. And again, you see these viral tweets, you see, 1 million views, and it's like, I really want that because that can help out so much. But I don't want to write content like that. Like there's the thread boys, there's the hot takes, there's the memes, and it's like, yeah, I could do that and like maybe that would work out well, but for me, I'm like, I kind of write as I talk, and yeah, maybe it's not the best delivery method. I've used other tools to like rewrite with AI. So there's like Typefully, which does scheduling, AI rewriting, all this stuff. And disclaimer, I do have a subscription, so I kind of like it, but I don't want to be too attached to it. Like there's things where I want to be able to write from my own brain, get it out there, and see how that affects the community.
Yeah, I have Typefully too, and
Awesome.
I think I've used it like once. So everything I
Okay.
post on LinkedIn is completely me. I don't like the AI rewriters. I feel like it loses you a little bit.
Yeah,
It
it
kind of
does.
it almost like washes away those imperfections and those that weird cadence that you might talk with. Like that's part of who you are.
Hmm.
Like I speak in a very like dry way. I think a lot, and I write very dry. Like I know that. I'm definitely not like the best copywriter in the world. Like I couldn't
Hmm.
like sell something like that, but I feel comfortable with what I write and like what the intent of the audience is for. But one thing that you were saying, or as you're talking about, the algorithm kind of doing its work, I was going to ask you 'cause something I've noticed, and it's funny because I notice it and I go, "Oh, that's super weird. Like, what are the odds?" But then I'm like, "Well, that's exactly what happened to you, Bennett." So basically, like, I have like my real estate Twitter folks, I have like tech Twitter folks I follow, and then I have like just completely random, like accounting people and just
Hmm.
all other kind of people. And like every now and then I'll see like someone who I would consider like completely like outside of like real estate, like maybe like in the accounting space, like a really obscure like 200 follower account that I follow just because I really think they have like a really cool, unique perspective. I'll see them interact with like another real estate account that I follow that's also like pretty obscure. but they're like interacting, and it's like almost like a weird like Avengers moment where I'm like, these two, like this crossover of like these different Twitter groups like shouldn't happen. But I think the algorithm, like the same reason that I followed both of them, like they must follow each other. But like it was, and every time I see that happen, and this happened a few times, I'm always like, why would they like know each other? But it's like, or why would they like talk online? Like they're completely different worlds. But that's probably how I ended up following them, because it was like, oh, you should follow blah blah blah, or they probably were promoting, that obscure account's tweets, and I went and followed it. But yeah, it was like this weird like crossover where I was like, these worlds are colliding. They seem like they should be
Mhm.
separate online. But yeah, it was interesting when I would see that happen.
Yeah, I've seen that with Laravel, the PHP community, and the JavaScript community. There's a whole bunch of debates. I think we touched on it a little bit, but I had that moment where, I had my list of 40, Laravel folks, and I had my, 20 or 10 TypeScript, JavaScript, full stack devs. And they kind of got into a battle of, what's the best framework, JavaScript versus PHP, all this kind of nonsense. And yeah, it was cool. It's like you follow these people and you see their content in a specific light, and then you see these other people interact with them. You're like, I'm logging on to get insights from each separate group, but seeing them come together, for the drama and kind of the entertainment is great. But also, there's useful conversations that come out of it for the most part. So I felt that too. And back to your AI writing point, I've felt that 100%, where I write something, I write it, or I send it through Typefully, which says the rewrite with AI, and they have a whole set of options to choose. The one that I went to, 99% of the time, was make it more punchy. Essentially, it was kind of delivering a bit of wowness, or a bit of, well, almost like clickbait, honestly. It was like, how could it transform the text to be more showy and flashy, delivering the same sentences, but in a more like clickbaity manner. So I used to write my tweets and then run it through this rewrite, make it punchier. And it was great because the interface made it really easy to retry. So I'd have my original tweet, I'd have my AI tweet, and I could just go through iterations. So retry, retry, retry. Usually land on something good and post it. But then in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, if I'm relying on this tool to come out with content that modifies my content, like if I ever post something off the cuff without using this, people are going to be like, this sucks. This isn't what I followed this guy for, and I don't like this content. And maybe it's not to that extreme, but it felt like I was being dependent on it. And I think the Typefully product, not sponsored, but it has a ton of other tools like analytics and scheduling. But the one that I leaned on the most was AI rewriting, because in the days of, like you said, trying to get more eyeballs, how can you deliver something that just has the storytelling aspect? Kind of reminds me of one time I wrote a really long thread, essentially telling this debugging story. And in my head, I thought, oh, this story is great. I have developers that follow me. This is going to blow up on Twitter because I'm going to write kind of a jokey, funny storytelling of me just kind of fumbling through what should have been a 30-minute fix, be a 10-hour ordeal. So I wrote the whole thing, published it, and was like feeling really good about it. No AI rewrites or anything. And then I think I got like 5 likes and like 2 comments. And I spent maybe an hour writing the thread, maybe even more than that, hour and a half writing it. And I'm just thinking, it's crazy because you spend all this time writing and you have a goal in your head. Like you're sharing it to share it, but you're also sharing it, to grow your audience and do that. And it received no, positive feedback, didn't blow up. And I see all these other threads that seem stupid or memey to me. I don't know how long it took, but then they blow up and I'm like, oh, maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't try so hard. Like maybe just post what I like posting about. Don't think twice. Don't hit an AI tool, and just see what happens, because I think that's a valid way to do it. Although the fast track of getting all these eyeballs and followers does feel like, go write a meme, go write a thread, go use AI. It's like, I don't think that long term holds up unless you're, gung ho on doing that all the time.
Yeah. And just in case you're hearing any background noise, we have a thunderstorm going on right now. So if that's coming through, then you're enjoying an Arizona thunderstorm
Ooh.
ambiance with the podcast. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying makes total sense. And, with it's a weird way, because I think a lot of times on LinkedIn, especially, I don't know as much about Twitter. I'm sure this happens a lot, but you can clearly see it on LinkedIn, in my opinion, where someone's writing something with AI and there's like AI responses. And it's almost like, if it's just to like, if AI is writing it and then like half the people that are responding are just like AI, like auto reply people,
Hmm.
then like it's almost like this weird thing of like the computer is just we're just posting it for the computer to read, and like we don't even really care about the content. And there's a lot of that, I feel like, where it's just like, if we are taking something that's like a succinct point, but it doesn't sound punchy, or it doesn't sound as like, thread doesn't make a nice Twitter thread, but we're like expanding it to make it like be a Twitter thread, like we're losing ourselves just for the algorithm almost, and it's like, yeah, to me, that it's almost like a hypocrisy, I guess. I struggle with that, because I just feel like I'm not being genuine, and it might be the shortcut to do something, but there's like morality is not the right word, but there's just like I said, authenticity issue that comes with taking those shortcuts if it's not being true to yourself or true to the content that you're trying to promote, and you're trying to make it more extravagant or more viral. The one thing I would say that I've done that was actually really helpful was I think we talked about like continuous improvement and like continuous learning in a previous podcast. One of the courses I took from Udemy was like a copywriting course of like how to like write effective copy, because that's something that like I definitely desperately need. And for me, that's way different from like, you put in the effort, like you're learning how to write copy, like you as like a human being are learning how to write copy and wanting to apply it to your, whatever you're trying to sell, or if just your own writing for like a business situation. Like that's different to me than just like letting the machine do it and not like understanding it. You know what I mean? Like there's a psychology behind those, like behind how you copyright and do that well. And I think it's one thing to use AI, but then like also understand that philosophy or that psychology. But a lot of times people are just doing it, like you said, as a shortcut. Like, I remember when Grammarly came out years and years and years ago, I was not a fan of it, because I'm just like, it's gonna like just like, what's the right word, like, well, your own writing, because you're just gonna be too reliant on it. Yeah. So I'm not a fan of those shortcuts, I guess.
Yeah, I've definitely dipped my toes in using a lot of the AI rewriting, but probably moving forward, and as I write more, like I want to get it out there, I want to tell people what I'm working on, but at the same time, not go through the lens of kind of the ultra filter, because I have an objective, I have a strategy, I have like, a direction, and then I feel like the algorithm points me in a different direction, and AI also points me in a different direction, and it's like, yes, that can work, but it doesn't feel long-term sustainable, and it also doesn't feel like me. I'd rather have, like you said, spelling mistakes, or maybe a more boring presentation, but some people will like it. I think my most popular tweet I've ever had, which really got me the taste of like, this is what life would be like if I wrote these crazy, popular tweets, was there's this guy who had quit Meta, started his indie hacker journey on Twitter, and posted about it. So I think, the TLDR of his long tweet was like, hey, I was making at Meta, I quit my job, I'm starting to create like content for developers that can help them teach AI using Next.js. And I had thought about writing this tweet so many times, because I had also quit my job at Meta, also making similar amounts of money. But it just felt like so clickbaity, and like, just like getting people to look at your content. So I didn't write it, but he wrote it. And so I jumped in the comments, kind of, said, hey, nice to meet you. I also, started the same journey, like yada, yada. And then like right after I posted that tweet, didn't think anything of it. And I think over the next 24, 48 hours, I got like at least 250 followers. I think the tweet had like 12K views. Bunch of people were following me from that one single reply. And the guy who posted the original tweet reached out to me, and we kind of chatted about Meta and what he's working on. But it was, zero effort. I think I did it on a car ride while I was on vacation. I was like, oh, that's cool. Another Meta guy had quit and started his own thing. Like, I'm just going to reply saying me too. Like, literally is maybe 200 characters, me too, but essentially nothing with any effort. And that blew up, and it worked out well for me. Gained a bunch of followers, and I was like, is this what it's like? Because I was kind of riding his fame or his coattails of all this effort he had spent to write this juicy story with a hook just to get all these eyeballs. So I was kind of inserting myself of like, hey, I'll take some of that, kind of in the same boat, more or less. And yeah, it was an interesting experience, because I felt a little bad commenting on it, because I was like, if this does do well, I'll be, with him. But I don't think he really cared. It probably drew more views to his tweet. But yeah, it was the first taste that I'd ever had of like writing a low effort tweet to get lots and lots of followers out of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think now, like you said, clickbait, like I think people are getting maybe wiser or more selective to clickbait. I mean, I know that those threads like still do well, but
Hmm.
again, I think it's like, I don't want to like curse on here, but it's like, it's not, it's just like trolling almost. Like it's not like deep, it's not like authentic. And I feel like there's a shift now that I've just noticed, and I'd be curious if you noticed too, of people that are just being genuine and like putting out their work and not necessarily being clickbaity, but helping others and like maybe like putting out information for free or engaging more with people in a way that's like not trying to be like salesy or not trying to like, hey, you can find out the whole thing on my course. Like there's, and I think that is being appreciated. Ultimately, I think when you do that, when you have like an environment of people that like support each other, and I'm not in the Laravel community, but like I follow a lot of the Laravel people because of you and just because of my like tangent tech interest. But that's a community where I feel like a lot of people like support each other, and it's like, oh, this person's doing something really cool over here. Like, let's go support them, or they release a new product. Like, oh, we got to get that. They release it. It's almost like it's like that goodwill that you build up by being authentic, but also kind and supportive to others. Like it kind of comes back around. And I feel like that's almost like a movement or a trend I've seen that's almost like a reversal of like the clickbaity thread boy culture.
Yeah, and I think the more value you provide for free, the more followers you get, and then that will in turn help, once you have that distribution, once you release a product and you have this follower base that believes in you and trusts you, then it's, you're off to the races. So it's the approach that I tried. I'm building in public, sharing things. Part of me wants to share the product thinking, the technology thinking of why I made these decisions. The other ones are like learning. So if I ran into a hard area of the code base or a complex feature, I overcame that challenge. I think there's a much smaller audience that's interested in that, so I didn't spend too much time there. But yeah, essentially giving out a ton for free to get people on your side, understanding what you work on and why. And then if you have a content course or if you have a product that comes out of that, then people are like ready to open their wallets. And I think this is a very, very long-term play. I say play, but it's not really. I would say be yourself, be authentic, and give that value. Don't do it for like, hey, I know that I'm going to cash this out later, because people can see right through that. Like, there's people that I follow that have tons and tons of followers, still reach out and help people all the time. There's other people that I follow that, do all the threads, have very scheduled content that feels very AI like, don't respond to anyone who comments on their tweets because it's scheduled. They're not even really on their device. They're probably bulk writing tweets and scheduling that. And that's that. And it's the people that are human, the people that help others, the people that have been sharing knowledge for years. Those people's reputation is, 10 times higher than the thread person you see on your Twitter feed, every week. And like those are the people that I'm aspiring to be. But I think the journey to get there is much, much longer. And it's kind of like putting in that routine effort week over week, like having a posting goal or, not being too tied to the numbers. Because again, I've spent a lot of effort on tweets that really flopped in an essence, and being too tied to like, how many views did I get? How many likes did I get? It just feels really bad. And so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
disregard that, do what you think is fun, enjoy it, because if you don't, it's going to be super, painful. And then just put out good content. Hopefully that'll draw an audience, and the stuff that you're interested in, there's at least enough people that are on the other side to receive that. And like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, when you set up your expectations for like this thread is so amazing it's going to go viral, or this tweet's so
mhm,
amazing it's going to go viral, like disappointment only comes when expectations are X and reality is Y. Like if you don't
yeah.
have those expectations, you're not going to be disappointed. And I think that's something that originally on I wasn't good about, but now and almost immediately right away I was like, okay, this is like you said, a long game. Like this, you're not here to go viral. You're here to like build credibility and build trust and
Mhm.
who you are as a person, not just for the skills that you are able to do, but who you are as a person and like how you operate. And you mentioned like scheduling tweets and not engaging with people that reply, and it's almost like you'd think that like scheduling tweets and like being consistent and like having like an upload schedule, that almost sounds like hard, or like that sounds like it's a lot of work, and it is. But I think it's harder to do that engagement constantly and like be present to people when they need your help or when they need your support, and like just putting in that like extra effort I think people can tell. I think you said, like, I think you made the comment of like, people can tell when something is clickbaited. They can tell when it's AI written, or they can tell when it's, thread boy. And, I think people are able to identify like what takes extra work and appreciate that more versus something that like, oh, this person just used AI to write this and I'm not going to read it. Or if I do read it, I'm not going to take it that seriously just because, it's just some, you know, chat GPT thoughts that don't really apply to me as a human being, or, just aren't valuable other than just generic words on a tweet.
Yeah, I think for Twitter, there's lots of times I'll write these long tweets or I'll write a thread, but it's not really a clickbait thread. It's just like my, you know, thought process from top to bottom. But then I just never get it over to a blog post. And that is the worst feeling because I have so many good threads on Twitter. And I say good, subjectively, I think they're good. And I've always wanted to build a tool or hand roll my own tool to get those onto my blog. My blog is kind of my higher effort surface where I'll spend time to intentionally write content, review it, get images, like really an engaging article, partly storytelling, partly like technical, deep content that I think is specific to whatever I'm aiming at. But it's, I've spent a lot of time on Twitter over the past 12 months sharing what I'm working on. And yeah, I think my blog would get so many more visitors, like be higher ranked in Google with all this content that's just sitting there on Twitter because people see it, it's in the algorithm. After a day or two, it's gone and all that effort is gone. And again, I think 80-20, like 80% of my tweets were minimal effort, and that 20%, either I spent a lot more time with higher expectations or spent time just trying to test and see things. And I think across all those tweets I sent, at least like 30%, maybe 40% probably could be turned into a series of articles, series of blog posts, either connecting multiple tweets or individual tweet threads being, a full on article. There's tons of AI products out there that are kind of transforming different mediums where you'll have a YouTube video, it'll generate a blog post, it'll, do X, Y, and Z. I don't think I've seen one for Twitter yet, and I would love to have one just because, yeah, I feel like I've written so much good content that at this point is absolutely hard to discover and more or less gone, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. And, it's important. We've been talking about like your target audience and like, wanting it to be like people that either can relate to you or like aspire to like do what you're doing at some point in their future. And it reminded me of something that Jason Statt said, who we've talked about a lot on this podcast, but he's like an accounting, thought leader. I'm sure he hates that title probably, but he gives a lot of thoughts about like the accounting space. And he said something, on a podcast or a YouTube video that I thought was like super interesting, and it applied to what you were saying just now, where you have all this great content like for your blog, like these threads, and maybe they didn't take off as like viral threads, but they're probably like highly technical and like super useful to people trying to build iOS apps. And he said something to the effect like the third grader isn't impressed by like the adult that has like a job and a career. The third grader is impressed by like the fifth grader because that is like they're closer to that, like to them, like that's more realistic, and like they like can see like once I'm 2 grades up from here, that's what I'll be. Whereas like an adult, it's like just too far away. And almost in a weird way, and I think about it too, like in my own situation, like it's one thing, like say I wanted to be the CFO of a public company, like, you know, that's so far like down the road. It doesn't even like if I'm reading like a CFO's blog, it's like not that applicable to me. I don't really care that much about it. But like there's like maybe like a VP or like a senior vice president that's like still ways from where I am today, but it's not as far. And so it's like those are the things that like I'm more interested in. And like I feel like for your own blog content, like people that are building iOS apps, especially like you can even niche it down even more. People that are building iOS apps in payment space with split my expenses, or when they're building things like in the AI space like Chatty Butler, like that content that you have, like maybe to 30 people it's super valuable. Maybe it doesn't have 3,000 views, but like to those 30 views or whatever, it's like that content is just what they needed. It's nice to think of it that way too, because I feel like it's a bit more like you're helping people just by sharing your own thoughts, and it's a selfless thing to do, which I think is appreciated.
Yeah, I try to do a monthly blog post and don't look too deeply in my history. I think I've hit monthly, but probably need to write one for July. But yeah, I think when I think of the blog, I think of something that's much more polished, something that's more kind of aligned with what I want to look like and how I want to present myself. Where I think of as Twitter and building in public, it's like raw thoughts, raw emotion. As
Mhm.
I'm fighting the battles, this is how I feel and this is what I'm going through. For the blog, it's like, hey, for the past month, I've been building this feature. What can I spend a lot of my time on to help level up people who are fighting that battle, but can use my experience to guide their future. So that's something that I've really liked doing. But yeah, I think just thinking about the void in Twitter and how much content I've had that isn't out there, like, yeah, might have to go through the tweets, next weekend and kind of pull out a few nuggets and backdate a few blog posts because there are some that I've spent a lot of time on and thinking about how it's just completely gone feels kind of bad. So yeah, maybe I'll have an update a future pod episode of how that went.
Yeah, we're getting some live ideas cooking right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's cool. What are your thoughts? I'm curious what your thoughts are on, you do like a monthly blog. Personally, I feel like video is like not the next frontier. That's way too dramatic, but like video is more and more important. I think being like out there and showing that you not just have a face, but like it's easier to BS like in something posting something online, like in writing it versus like being on video. You can still BS, of course, but like it gets harder to kind of fake that, I think. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on like vlogs. Like, would you ever consider doing like a vlog about like the technical content you're working on?
I think I would, but it enters that tier of much higher effort.
Yeah.
So I can write a tweet, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I can write a blog post, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours max.
Hmm.
And I think when it comes to video, we have the pod. It's very much a real time effort. Yes, there's slight editing here and there, but it's not, it's us being humans and us chatting about things. When I think of video content, I think of very produced, very to the point, but also a good storytelling opportunity as well. So I've done like for fun videos in the past, just on random things. I haven't done anything probably in the past 10 years on any video content, but I'm a huge video content consumer myself. Like learning materials, if I have video, text, and audio, like I jump immediately to video. So I think I
Yeah.
would like to do it, but sometimes I do struggle to write that monthly blog post. Like, I'll be honest, it's something I want to do. And I know it's valuable, both me getting down my thoughts and just to help other people.
Hmm.
But sometimes I just feel so busy. I'm like, okay, I'll get to that, maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and I'll backdate it. I'll get there. But I think for video, I would even drag my feet a little bit more where I'd be like, okay, maybe a video every month. And that's going to take me 12 hours and very produced. So I feel like reducing that burden to get me to post is a big thing. And I think with video, the bar just jumps straight to the top. You're competing with people who have the perfect lighting, the perfect audio, like really good editing. And I think I lack a lot in those skills of video where you can get pretty deep and feel very professional. So
Hmm.
I think starting out, like setting expectations correctly. But I think I would like to. I think the podcast is a good foray into the video and getting
Yeah.
more comfortable on camera and talking about things. But I think there's a whole nother level having, a 10, 20 minute, 30-minute technical video, making it very to the point and polished and trying to find the right level of the audience to, how to dig deep into these things. Cause I think for me, like building Chatty Butler, I could talk about how I built WebSockets, which allows, asynchronous events from server to client, like something that's a meaty topic on, mobile or web, and then diving deep into that. Just, it would be fun. But again, I think it's a lot of effort. I'm not yet there to have the perfect production workflow for video editing, but I would like to. I think it would be kind of the next key. And yeah, speaking of next frontier, I think it is. Like it truly feels like, you can be yourself, you can have something really high value. And I think people really notice it. Like you can write a good blog post and people can reshare it, but sometimes they won't read it. I feel like video, you can turn it on, you can kind of sit back and you're not distracted. Like you read
Hmm.
a blog article, a text comes in, you leave, you don't come back. But for video, I'm like very dialed, and I feel like it gets your full attention and you're usually like impressed that, hey, this person put this together. I recognize the effort and I've gotten value out of it. So I think it builds a lot in terms of credibility.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, that makes sense. And like for me, videos become more and more important, since we've been doing this podcast, but then also just thinking about like the quality of work that I do and the type of work that I do. One thing that really turned me on to it actually was, and it was a bit random, but I had to take my car into the dealership, and I won't say the car's name because I don't want to get sued, but it's a horrible car. I have instant buyer's regret buying this car, but neither here or there. So I was in the dealership as I usually am with this car, and they did like the maintenance like walkthrough, and they recorded a video. It was just, I think it was just like the employee with like an iPhone, I think. But the iPhone cameras are so good now, and they record like the walkthrough of like as if I was under the car, like looking at, oh, your
Hmm.
engine belt is broken over here, your coolant's leaking over there. And as much as I hated the message of the video, I was like, oh, this is actually like kind of cool to like see all of that. And like I'm not like a
Hmm.
big car person myself, and I kind of thought about it in terms of like for my own work, like and if I were to ever like go off and do my own like accounting firm, there's some firms that already do this, so this is definitely not revolutionary. But if I were to go and do my own thing, it would be important to me to like provide like video walkthroughs of like people's financials, and like you're explaining, just like the car mechanic was explaining what was wrong with their
Hmm.
car, like you're explaining, hey, this is your financial performance for this month, or these are areas that you need to work on, to get revenue up, blah blah blah. So I think like having those recorded videos is just a better medium to communicate things in a lot of ways. Like you said, like you'll watch a video more likely than you're going to read something, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
people are like that too. And but even not just that, like also like from my work at my current role, I used to being on camera's always been super important to me. Like I don't want to really join meetings and be off camera unless like I'm not feeling well, or just like it's just a quick catch up. But I think going into video settings where you're going to be on video, and whether it's like a video call or you're recording a walkthrough of something that you're doing, and like being present, bringing the right energy to those meetings or to that
Hmm.
walkthrough, whatever you're recording, is super underappreciated, and I think goes a long way. Just like the quality of what you're doing. And the last thing I'd say on that note is, because I'm currently working on some like I won't say vlogs, but like video content about like technical programming with accounting, and like how to make those things all work together. And I've been surprised at how much easier it is for me to just get on the computer and like record my screen and like just code or do stuff in Excel versus like writing. I'm just not a natural
Huh.
writer. So for me, it's easier to just like record and like talk and be like, this is what I'm doing here. Like I haven't had to
Hmm.
edit it yet, which I think is where a lot of the time suck comes in. But it's definitely been surprising how like low friction, just getting on, turning on the camera, turning on the mic, and just hitting record and like doing your process it's definitely even easier than I thought it'd be, like on that side of things. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting how my perception of video has changed probably since we've been starting doing this podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, I think video has the human touch too, where in the age of AI, any text, like you don't know if that's a bot, you don't know if that's a human. Like we had
Mm.
talked about, people will chat me on my expenses website thinking I'm a bot, once a week, like straight up, just, this is some AI bot. And I say, hey, no, it's me. I think when you go to the video realm, AI isn't good enough to create a video, with anybody's face, animating the lips, having the same voice. We're getting there, and I think it's close. Sadly, almost too close, because I think if that's removed, for us, where I can create a video taking my face, animating everything, I'm typing out the text, or like AI is typing out the transcript or whatever I'm doing. Kind of a sad day, honestly. But yeah, I think for now, what we have is, if you can make that video and you have your face and you have, a lot of the good lighting and good setup and just good flow, I think, of a video, like people recognize that as high effort, and repeatedly putting in that high effort, you might not get a ton of views. And, like I was talking about the Twitter metrics, you can get very attached to those things, especially when you're actively trying to grow. But if you can get better at the task at hand, making better videos, having better quality, like optimizing your mic, your lighting, your timing, putting all that effort in is going to pay off. And I think like there's tons of YouTubers out there who are putting out videos right now, probably don't have an audience. And then, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, are going to be like, yeah, I remember when I used to have 100 subs and no one used to follow me. Now I'm like, making good money with video content. Like you got to start somewhere.
Mhm.
Hearing you talk about hitting record, I feel that, but I feel that with writing a blog article, where I think about it for 3 weeks, what I'm going to write about. I don't get down to it till I start writing, but once I start writing, it flows.
Mm.
So sometimes I think, oh, I have this in my head where I have to hit this bar for the blog, but if I just start writing, I'll get there, and I don't need to like overthink it. So maybe it's the same with video, where if I started out, I would just kind of go see how that ended up being, and would probably be fine. But yeah, probably not as good as a lot of the, pretty impressive technical or like course video content out there. I think people have really honed in, especially in the remote work era, getting good lighting, getting a good desk setup, having this like very presentable camera, video meeting presentation is big. And I think like a lot of the interviews I've taken recently are on video, and I'm talking to folks both like doing a coding interview, doing a design, or like a behavioral interview, and having people like you really notice like the quality of mics, the quality of lighting, and you can tell the people who are really engaged. Like lots of times the people with the good equipment are very engaged and awesome people to talk to. Not to say that people with less equipment aren't, but you can really tell when people are passionate about it and spend time like having a good setup and then delivering, like being, a very energetic and charismatic person. So I feel like it all goes hand in hand to try to look good, try to perform the best, put in all that effort. And again, hopefully it pays off. There's no guarantee. I think everything is, up in the air, but spending long-term effort, putting in, your best work is where you're going to see hopefully the best returns.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's like compounding. And I think like Einstein said like compounding is like the eighth wonder of the world. I think he meant it for more of like a financial perspective, but but learning how to, get your lighting right, learning how to record, like there's a balance where you don't want to become a full-time video editor, of course, but
Right.
I do feel like that is, it's an important detail that's becoming more and more important in this age of remote work, in this age. It's like a digital first impression, and you want to make a good first impression. It's like you wouldn't show up to a job interview back in the day with like a t-shirt and jeans. Maybe you coders would, but like traditionally, you wouldn't. But, and so now it's a little bit different. You're taking interviews, via Zoom, and, you want to give off the best first impression that you can. That's actually a great segue into one thing I wanted to ask you about was how the interview's been. Because I know last time we talked, you were mentioning that you were doing the interviews, had some lined up, and I was curious if you wanted to share any updates on that or kind of how it's been so far.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Going pretty well. There's quite a mix of companies that I'm talking to. I think the difference of being an iOS engineer and in the interview loop for a mobile engineer is that there's definitely a lot of content to cover. So there's inside the iOS realm, there's Swift, the new popular programming language. There's Objective-C. Inside of Apple frameworks, there's Swift UI, which is kind of this declarative UI, and then there's UIKit. So that's all in the mobile realm. On top of that, as a general software engineer, you're getting, quizzed on algorithms and data structures. So as I approach these things, it's definitely a little challenging on how to prepare correctly because you can slice it in every different way. Different companies put emphasis on different parts, where you can think of the big tech like the Google and the Metas of the world are putting more emphasis on general algorithms, whereas the smaller companies, maybe like Airbnb, kind of these mobile first companies, are really putting emphasis on like mobile coding or iOS coding in specific. So they're not quizzing you on data structures, but they're quizzing you on, hey, can you open up Xcode, the IDE? Can you code an app from scratch? Can you add a feature? So something you're doing much more day-to-day work. Whereas some of the larger companies are very much like, we have a standard interview process. We'll give you some mobile questions, but it's mostly like general software engineering. It's been a bit of a challenge. This upcoming week, definitely have a lot of interviews scheduled. As I look at the interviews, I pretty much tailor my preparation to exactly what that interview is. So if I know the company is very iOS specific, I'll, dabble in Xcode and build out a few mock apps, just various features that, companies could ask me. But if I'm doing, algorithms and data structures, a more general approach for software, I'm straight to LeetCode. And LeetCode is the premier platform for having this giant set of questions. All these questions have difficulty tags, like an easy, medium, hard. And a lot of times for these interviews, it's one or two questions, medium or above. And so they'll ask you a question. They'll say, hey, can you code this? You have to walk through talking out loud, coding it in real time. There's tons of patterns you can apply to the questions, but then you finish one and straight to the next. And so a whole learning curve for that as well, because there's so many different questions out there. It's impossible to memorize all of them. It's kind of nice when you see one you've already seen. That's great. But ideally, you're learning the kind of principles and pattern matching to say, for this specific problem, there's maybe 3 or 4 approaches I could take. And then in the interview, like figuring out what that looks like. So yeah, getting pretty deep into it, having good success. Depending on the company that I talk to, kind of dictates the interview duration, cycle, timing, and kind of focus area, whether that's iOS or general. But yeah, making good progress. Don't have too much to share today. But yeah, I think week over week, we're getting closer, talking to a great set of companies that I'm excited about. And I think it's going to be turning out pretty well. But yeah, still got to get through it. There's, these on-site interviews that I'm starting to approach, like 5 hour ordeals, 5.5 hours of just, back to back talking to these folks, and can definitely be pretty exhausting, but it's exciting too. Like, it's nice being able to talk to different companies and like have that potential future where when you do have a job, you're at a company, things are kind of as is. When you're in this job seeking mode, there's so much opportunity out there, and it's sometimes overwhelming to see, hey, should I go here or should I go there if I have the opportunity? But other times it's so cool to get the insight into a company, see how they operate, and just like meet new folks. Like, you're just meeting people left and right. And it's so cool to, see people with so much passion and energy. And you're like, okay, I want to join that company because, the conversations that I had with this person were fantastic.
Yeah. Culture is super important, and it's easy to be like, a job's a job and I just want to get my paycheck. But like, if you want to stick around and enjoy what you're doing, like, make sure you enjoy the people that you work with, for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to ask you on that real quick, because we were talking about it earlier, I'm assuming you use like your podcasting equipment in the interviews. Is that how it's been?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So if I have like only a behavioral, I kind of set up my camera, which I have right now. We'll set up the mic and do it. But a lot of times right now I'm doing like a coding interview and a behavioral interview. In that case, I usually just use my laptop and I use my external monitor. So I don't have the mic and I don't have the camera. And it's not the same presentation. Like, I don't have kind of the eye level camera. I'm much more like the traditional kind of laptop dialer where my head's at the bottom of the screen, it's kind of blurred background, etc. Yeah. But I would love to have it, the full setup, but haven't perfected the full setup at home. The podcast, I whip it out, everything, try my best to make it look good. But I think for interview time, I'm like much more focused on like, how can I be the utmost comfortable and like efficient? And so haven't quite gotten there, but I have taken a few behaviorals with this setup. And when I do, it feels great. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm comfortable in this lighting and things look better than what it looked like on the MacBook. But yeah, doing the coding ones and behavioral, there's like no way I could have this set up, unfortunately.
Yeah. The microphone gets in the way a little bit with your hands if it's the mic like that. Yeah, totally. Well, cool. Awesome. I guess jump into our bookmarks here.
Yep. So for this week, I have bookmarked on X, kind of an exciting one. This is from Ruderank Ryam, and he posted a link to Apple's new developer documentation for App Intents. So Apple, in their latest WWDC, released App Intents for Apple Intelligence. So App Intents have always existed. Essentially, it's a way to talk to your iPhone as a developer and say, this is behavior that my app provides. What just came out in the recent iOS 18.1 beta was the Apple Intelligence support. So now you can choose across 12 different domains, and these domains are like kind of categorizing certain actions. So this can be like, working with a browser, so you can open a tab, close a tab, bookmark something, clear a history. There's all these categories. So there's browser, there's camera, etc. What your app can do is say, I can do something in that domain. So I can open a tab to a specific URL. I can take a photo. So it's essentially providing that Apple Intelligence layer to app developers. App developers work hard to create their app and then expose these AI actions and AI features. And so I've seen a blog article from a different developer saying App Intents as a framework on Apple platforms is like the number one framework to know because of AI and because of how much the system uses it, where I think 4 or 5 years ago, no one really cared about it because there wasn't shortcuts and there wasn't Apple Intelligence. Now that shortcuts exist, they use App Intents. Now that Apple Intelligence, will exist, or, maybe next year sometime, that's going to be a way where people can look at their phone, have your app open, like invoke Apple Intelligence and just say things. And when people say things, it'll then look at what your app can provide and what it can do, invoke some of those actions that you've provided as a developer, and then boom, things are done automatically. So a pretty big moment for developers. I think it's kind of a groundbreaking release on Apple's side for the new beta. I imagine, every single app company, like literally everybody will adopt this, from big company to small company, because the expectation is Apple's going to do well on this, and people are going to want to interact and use AI for your own app. So I'll share it in the show notes, but I haven't got to play with it yet. I think there's like so many pages to go through, but a huge release on Apple's side and pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. It reminds me a little bit. I haven't looked at the article that you linked at all, but I think the Alexa SDK talks about like intent and like invocations and stuff like that. Because I think I mentioned either a podcast or two ago, I was working on like an Alexa skill with like Hello Kitty, and so the like intent and like invocations kind of was reminding me of that. What you were saying. So
yeah, it sounds similar.
Yeah, sounds cool. Cool. Mine is actually a bit different than usual, but I picked up a book a couple of weeks ago at a recommendation from some people I work with, and it's called Being Human, but the spelling is not what you would normally consider because it's actually the person's last name. So it's written by Judith Heumann, and she is a disability rights activist. So it's like an autobiography. It was just really good. It was really good. I don't normally read these kinds of books, to be honest. I usually read like business books and like financial books. So a bit different from my usual read. But as I was reading through it, it was just very eye-opening. You know, it kind of talks about like her and then, you know, disability rights in general, their push to getting things passed and like recognized in society. It's like the American Disability Act. I hope I'm not messing that up as I talk about this book, but there's a lot of really important legislation that I don't have, you know, top of my notes here that she was a big part in like pushing forward, and not just like on like the law side of things, but then also just like societal and acceptance and all that. So super good book. It's amazing, you know, how far things can come in one person's lifetime, especially with like diligent work that she was doing. She and then her whole team of you know, like-minded folks. Yeah, really good book. It's not too long. I usually am always really good 75% through a book, and that last 25% is like pulling teeth for me to get through. But this one was really good all the way through. I think it was like 220 pages, I want to say.
Okay, that's not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And I read on my phone, like Kindle app, so I don't know if that like changes the pages at all, but yeah, it was just a great, you know, open my phone up, just read it, you know, read a chapter or two at a time, and yeah, just a great book. So highly recommend. It's just a really cool story. You know, pretty impressive human. I think she's no longer with us. I think she passed away a few years ago. Let me look that up. I don't want to just look that up. I don't want to be fact checked on that. Pretty sure.
I really should read more. The book that I have open on my nightstand is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah. I know that book.
That one, I think I'm a few chapters in, but yeah, that one, I really should finish that one. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah. Reading, and yeah, she did pass away last year. I thought I had that right. I want to make sure. Yeah, no, I know that book. I haven't read that book, but I got a big shelf in this closet here of books, and more than I'd like to admit, a lot of them are 80% read. Yeah,
better than zero.
Being authentic online, baby. Here it is. Yeah, there's one that I want to finish. I almost want to reread it because I started reading it, I put it down, and it's been a long time, so I'm like, I should probably reread it. But it was like How to Never Split the Difference, I think is what it's called. It's by Chris Voss, who's like an ex FBI like hostage rescue person. So it's about like negotiating.
Oh, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a really good book, like really good. It's just 70% through. I'm like, okay, I got it. Because I feel like I get all the good ideas from it. Then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Put this into place. I don't need to finish this, but then I just have all these books with like either a folded corner or like a bookmark that are like 3/4 of the way through. I hate that for myself, but you know, it's just a habit. So yeah.
Hey, that's authentic. You know, it is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's funny because I was like, oh, after I finished this book, and I read it all the way through because it was just, again, a great book. But after I finished this one, I was like, what book should I read next? And my wife's like, well, you have a bunch that you haven't finished that you could finish. And I was like, oh, I was thinking of something new. But yeah, that's a fair point too. So hey, accountability. Yeah, I'll go drop money on books and read half of them all day.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, good stuff. Yeah, we'll wrap this one up. Good stuff, Brad. And we'll publish this one on our usual channels. And cool. Have a good rest of your evening and do this all again next time.
Awesome. Sounds good. See ya.
Hey, hope you liked that episode of the Break Even Brothers podcast. To find more of our episodes, you can go to breakevenbrothers.com or find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Transistor FM. To connect with Brad, you can go to bradleybernard.com or at bradleybernard on X. And to connect with me, you can go to bennettbernard.com or at the Real Tech CPA on X. You can also find us both on LinkedIn. Thanks. See you next time.